My name is Verity Langley. I'm 36 years old, CEO of one of the fastest growing logistics firms on the East Coast, and apparently still just Quincy's wife to the Granger family. They come from old Connecticut money, all country clubs and legacy board seats, where the men talk deals over scotch and the women compete over charity galas and centerpieces. I married into their dynasty, thinking I could earn a seat at the table. But no matter how much I built, earned, or saved, especially for their collapsing company, I was always treated like the outsider who didn't belong. They had no ideas the woman they kept silencing at dinner was the one signing off on the contracts, keeping their empire alive. And on the night they shut me out one final time, I didn't just walk away, I detonated the truth. The Granger's estate sat like a crown atop Greenwich's most exclusive hill, framed by iron gates and judgment. You don't walk through that front door without history breathing down your neck. The valet didn't even ask my name. Inside, the house smelled of rosemary and regret. Dozens of hands worked the kitchen. Silverware clinked in precision, and crystal goblets caught the light like weaponized glass. "Verity," Corinne Granger greeted, air-kissing my cheek with perfect distance. "That dress is festive." Translation: I didn't meet the silent, colorless dress code of the Granger matriarchy. "Thanksgiving's a celebration," I smiled. I figured I'd wear something that reflected that. Her eyes flicked to the scarlet silk, clinging to my frame. She didn't respond. From the next room, Sterling Granger Sr.'s voice boomed. No phones at the table, no politics, and no business discussions with the wives. I froze mid-step. Quincy shifted beside me. "Ignore him," he whispered. "He's just being himself." I murmured. Dinner was served at 7 sharp. The Grangers dined in silence unless it was their turn to speak. Sterling dominated the head of the table, like a general, flanked by his sons. The Henderson account came up before the wine was even poured. "We'll finalize that Monday," Dash said, carving his turkey like it owed him money. Without interference, finally. My phone buzzed in my lap. Avery Cross. Security breach. Someone from a Granger IP just attempted to access our contract servers. Failed 2FA. High-level access attempted. I blinked, heart skipping a beat. I glanced across the table. Sterling was lecturing about supplier loyalty. Corinne was correcting the wine steward. No one was watching me. Granger Manufacturing was built on respect, Sterling barked. Not TikTok logistics or goddamn email chains. Dash raised his glass to the men who build and the women who cheer them on. The table laughed. Quincy didn't. Buzz. Avery, second message. "We're locking them out for now." But this wasn't a mistake. Someone's digging for termination clauses. I excused myself under the pretense of checking on the roast. In truth, I ducked into the butler's pantry and pulled up the IP logs from my phone. The breach attempt was traced to the library's private network. Same network where the men were planning the future of a company I was keeping alive. I stared at the green blinking dot. The arrogance, the entitlement. They weren't just excluding me. They were targeting me. Quincy found me 5 minutes later, guilt written all over his face. "What happened to transparency?" I asked, voice low. "I didn't know," he said. "I swear." Didn't know or didn't ask. His mouth opened, closed. Sterling's voice called from the hallway. "Quincy, bring your wife back. The roast is overdone without her approval." There was always this moment, the moment before the match drops into gasoline. And I just inhaled. "Someone inside this house just tried to hack my company," I said, walking past Quincy without looking back. "And I'm done staying silent." The chandelier hummed above me like it knew something I didn't. Back at the table, laughter cracked through the air as Sterling launched into one of his old war stories from the 80s. Something about breaking a union contract with a handshake and a cigar. I didn't care. I couldn't. because someone just tried to rip the lungs out of my company. I moved through the hallway like a ghost, heels muted against imported Persian rugs. The butler's door clicked shut behind me. My screen glowed in the dark pantry. System breach. Blocked. Source, library IP. My fingers flew. I pinged Avery. Verity. Who else has admin-level access to Granger's network? Avery, only family. Possibly Julian. But this is targeted. Someone searched termination clauses. Silence. My lungs tightened. The house creaked. Footsteps upstairs. A muffled laugh. I closed the phone and stepped out. Back into the golden cage. The dining room was louder now, the wine loosening tongues. Dash leaned across the table, waving a fork like a sword. Verity, you should really be helping with the silent auction. It's the kind of logistics you're built for. Quincy's jaw clenched. He said nothing. Corinne chimed in, her voice a melody dipped in venom. We all play our roles, dear. The men handle the pressure. The women make it beautiful. My smile was a blade. Interesting, because my logistics kept your factory open through 2 supplier collapses and a port strike in New Jersey. The table stilled. I stood. Excuse me. I needed air. And answers. The library door was cracked open, just wide enough. Inside, Julian Heath sat beside Sterling, their heads close. Sterling's laptop was open. A file flickered on screen. Blueprints, numbers. A name jumped at me before the door shut, Logishar. My heart dropped. Logishar was our competitor. Aggressive, ruthless. They'd been trying to poach Liberty clients for months. I turned and nearly collided with Dash. He grinned, too polished, looking for the bathroom. I found the sewer, I muttered, brushing past. He followed. It's not personal, V. This is legacy. You wouldn't understand. Try me. Your company? Flash in the pan. This family? For generations deep. Funny. For generations deep and still drowning. He stepped closer, whispered, You weren't supposed to see that. I kept walking. Fast. Kitchen. Back door. Out into the night air. The cold snapped like static against my skin. My breath fogged in the dark. I paced to the car, clicked the lock, slid inside, and slammed the door shut. Silence. Then a buzz. Avery. V, bad news. Someone just attempted a wire from our escrow reserve. $2.4 million. Flagged by security. It was approved by someone with your digital signature. No. I stared at the message. No one had access. No one but me. And Quincy. The words in my head turned sharp. Digital forgery. Identity theft. Federal offense. My phone rang. Naomi. V, I don't want to alarm you. Then don't. But a rumor's moving fast. There's chatter online that Liberty Freight's contracts are inflated. That your clients are ghost entities. And it's being traced back to an internal leak. Someone's building a case. I couldn't breathe. They're setting you up, she whispered. Hard. A shadow passed across the car window. I turned. No one. Just a breeze. Or something pretending to be one. Inside, the dining room lit up with applause. Sterling stood for a toast. A perfect family moment. Carved like marble, hollow inside. My phone buzzed again. Avery. The fake approval came from a device logged in from the guest house. Registered under Q, Granger. I looked back at the house. Guest house. Quincy. If Quincy sold me out, this isn't just business. It's war. The doorknob was cold. Brass, heavy, and somehow more honest than the men behind it. I opened it without knocking. The room smelled of cedarwood and control. Mahogany shelves lined the walls. Sterling stood at the head of the table, mid-sentence. Julian Heath sat across from him. Laptop open, posture smug. Dash lounged to the side like he'd already inherited the place. And Quincy, He looked like he'd swallowed a blade. All four heads turned. I didn't blink. This won't take long, I said, stepping in. Just a clarification. Sterling exhaled. Verity, this is not your meeting. I set the folder on the table. It's mine now. Dash laughed. That's cute. I opened the folder. 12 printed pages. All contracts. All signed. All bearing the Granger Manufacturing logo and my company's. You've been doing business with Liberty Freight for the past 18 months, I said. That's me. Julian leaned back. Excuse me. I'm CEO, majority shareholder, founder. You've paid us over $14.2 million to handle your logistics, freight, warehousing, distribution, and crisis management. Sterling paled. I renegotiated your supplier deals when your credit rating dropped. I absorbed your late shipments when your drivers walked. I ran cover for your QA disaster last February. Quincy whispered, Verity. I kept going. You remember that miracle when your manufacturing didn't shut down despite the West Coast strike? That was me. I pulled 6 strings, rerouted inventory through 3 states, and paid penalties for my reserves. Dash stood. You're lying. No. You're blind. Click. I tapped my phone. A screen on the far wall came to life. Avery's voice played through the Bluetooth speaker, calm and clear. This is a recorded verification of contract execution between Liberty Freight and Logistics and Granger Manufacturing. Signed, timestamped, secured through DOCA Verify, with executive approval from Liberty's CEO, Verity Langley. The room cracked open. You've all been sitting on a lifeline you didn't even recognize, I said. And tonight, someone tried to sever it. Julian looked to Sterling. This can't be right. You never told me. Sterling didn't speak. He couldn't. He just stared at me. Like I was a gun he forgot he loaded. Quincy broke. Why didn't you tell me? I turned to him slowly. Because you never asked. And when I tried, you changed the subject. Just like your father. Just like your brother. Dash spat. You're just trying to humiliate us. No, I snapped. If I wanted to humiliate you, I'd live stream this. Silence. Sterling sank into his chair. We didn't know. You didn't want to know. Julian stood, flustered. Even if this is true, none of this proves the breach attempt or the fake wire transfer. You're right, I said. I pulled out a flash drive. But this does. I slid it across the table. Our cybersecurity team traced the attempted signature fraud to a device registered to Quincy Granger. Guesthouse login. Static IP. Logged at 8:42 p.m. Julian's face locked. Dash's jaw dropped. Quincy flinched, like I'd slapped him. I didn't authorize anything, he said, voice cracking. I swear to God. But someone used your credentials, I said. And someone in this house knew enough to try and void the very contract keeping your company alive. No one here would sabotage their own family, Julian said flatly. Really? I shot back, because from where I'm standing, that's exactly what this family does best. The room buzzed, a low, heavy pressure like the air had thickened, and then Naomi appeared, right on cue. She stepped inside, holding an envelope. Sorry for the interruption, she said, her tone cool. Verity, your copy of the amended compliance report from your lawyers. I figured you'd want it signed before midnight. She handed me the papers, then glanced at Julian. Unless there's another signature attempt coming we should know about. His eye twitched. Naomi smiled. Didn't think so. I tucked the papers under my arm. Gentlemen, you wanted to discuss the Henderson deal? Funny thing. They're pulling out next quarter. Logistics issues, apparently. Sterling went pale. No. Yes, I said. And their new logistics partner? Also me. Because I know how to keep clients. Julian lunged. This is a setup. No, Naomi cut in. This is karma. It just wears heels tonight. Sterling's hand shook. Please, Verity. You have to help us. I held his gaze. If I walk out that door, your company has 48 hours left to live. Sterling's plea was still echoing in the room when I turned away. My heels struck the marble like gunshots. No one followed. Or maybe they did. I could feel eyes on my spine, heat on the back of my neck, the kind of sensation that makes instinct curl its fist. Cold air hit me as I stepped outside. The estate lights hummed. Every window glowed like a spectator waiting for the next blow. I didn't give them one. Not yet. My phone vibrated. Hard. Avery. We've got another issue. Someone accessed your escrow directory again. Failed transfer. Same device ID. Same IP block. I got into my car and locked the doors. My breath fogged on the windshield. Try not to panic, I whispered to myself. Panic is just fear with bad timing. But inside my bones rattled. Cut to black. I drove through the rain, back toward Liberty Freight HQ. The wipers clicked like a metronome, counting down to impact. Cut. The lobby was dark. Only emergency lights glowed. A sterile blue that made the building look abandoned. I swiped in with my key card. The sensor beeped. The door unlocked. The moment I stepped inside, the silence was wrong. Hollow. Expectant. I walked faster. Server room. Door ajar. A cold rush slid down my spine. Someone had been here. I pushed the door open. The screens flickered. Lines of code running. Deleting, rewriting. Like a digital heartbeat being forced into arrhythmia. Avery burst in behind me, out of breath. V, it's bad. He plugged in his tablet. Someone tried to upload falsified wire approvals to make it look like you authorized the transfers. We shut it down mid-process. But the files, they were crafted perfectly. Whoever did this knows federal compliance standards inside out. Cinematic freeze. Rain on the glass. Blue light on our faces. My pulse hammering. Run attribution, I said. He did. I watched the trace run across the screen. Hop through nodes. Peel back layers of masking. Then it landed. Not on Logisher. Not on a competitor. Not on a random hacker. Granger Estate, Guest House Network. Device, QG MacBook Pro. User, Quincy Granger. The world narrowed. Avery swallowed hard. V, if this gets escalated, this becomes a federal case. Wire fraud. Identity theft. Intent to manipulate corporate filings. You know what they say. The smallest lie is still a crack in the foundation. And someone's trying to widen that crack into a collapse. Quincy, my husband, my confidant, my blind spot, or someone using him, I whispered. Meaning Quincy isn't smart enough to build this, but he's easy enough to use. Avery looked at me, eyebrows tight. So what's the move? Lock down everything. Vault-level security. And prep a forensic report. I want timestamps down to the millisecond. Why? Because we're no longer dealing with sabotage. I stepped closer to the glowing monitors. We're dealing with conspiracy. Cut. By the time I returned to the estate, the rain had stopped. Fog curled around the garden lanterns like smoke from a crime scene. The front door opened before I reached it. Quincy stood there. His face was pale. His eyes hunted mine. We need to talk, he said. Yes, I answered. We do. The foyer light cast him in gold, but he looked tarnished. I didn't do it, he blurted. Whatever Avery found, I didn't approve anything. I didn't try to transfer anything. I didn't touch your accounts. I stared at him. Hard. Then explain why your device signature is on the attempted wire request. His throat worked. I don't know. You don't know, I repeated. Quincy, that's a felony. A federal felony. He ran a shaky hand through his hair. Julian said. I stopped breathing. Julian said what? He hesitated. Then, He said he needed access to my laptop to finalize paperwork for the restructuring. He logged into the guest house network. He said it was routine. He said it was for the family. A beat longer, and then a slow motion reveal. Not Quincy. Julian. The serpent in a tailored suit. I stepped back. 1 inch. Another. You gave Julian access to your device. My voice was thin wire, stretched to breaking. Do you understand what you handed him? Quincy looked like a man realizing he'd swallowed poison hours too late. I thought he was helping us. Helping? I laughed once. Sharp. Quincy, you just gave someone the keys to fabricate evidence using my identity. In our world, that's not a mistake. That's an attack. He reached for me. I stepped out of reach. His hand hung in the air. Empty. You said you wanted transparency, he whispered. I was trying. No, I said softly. You were trying to be obedient. Another beat. The chandelier above us flickered. Somewhere deeper in the house, a door shut. Too softly. Too intentional. I turned my head slightly. Footsteps. Not toward us. Away. Retreating. Listening. Someone had heard everything. I lowered my voice. Julian isn't restructuring your family's business, Quincy. He's dismantling it. And he's using you to do it. Quincy's face crumpled. What do we do? I inhaled. Slow. Steady. A mantra formed in my head, one I'd heard years ago. Power isn't taken. It's surrendered inch by inch by people who mistake silence for survival. Not tonight. We hunt, I said. Hunt who? You'll see. I moved toward the library. Quincy followed. We reached the doorway, and I stopped cold. The documents on the table were gone. Julian's laptop was gone. Dash's chair was overturned. A single whiskey glass stood on the mantel, rim stained, still warm. Someone had been standing right there, watching, listening. A chill slid under my skin. Verity. Quincy whispered. I didn't answer, because in the reflection of the library window, barely visible behind us, a silhouette moved. Not running, just stepping back. Into the dark. Someone inside this house wasn't hiding their involvement anymore. They were escalating. I turned, pulse hammering. If Quincy sold me out, this isn't just business, I whispered. It's war. The air in the library felt thinner now, like the house had exhaled something foul. I scanned the mantel again. Still warm. Still fresh. Whoever had been here was watching us. I moved fast. Quincy stumbled behind me as I marched toward the east hallway. Straight to Sterling's study. Verity, what are you? He gasped. Following the rot, I hissed. Cut. The double doors opened without resistance. The smell hit me first. Old tobacco, varnished leather, ink. Sterling's sanctuary. The desk drawers were locked. Not a problem. I pulled a hairpin from my bun, slipped it into the keyhole and turned. Click. The second drawer opened. Papers, passports, checks, and a slim black moleskine journal with a green sticker. I flipped it open. Handwritten ledgers. No column labels. Just codes. Wire amounts. Names. Some I didn't recognize. Others I did. Too well. JP/$82,000. AMC/$240,000. NL/$31,000. KH Logisher/$175,000. My blood chilled. This wasn't payroll. This was payoff. Jesus, Quincy whispered behind me. Is that? Yes, I said. Sterling's backdoor ledger. He's been buying silence. Quincy stepped closer. Logisher. Why would? I cut him off. That name, KH. That's Nolan Keller. He's a senior compliance director at AMC. If he took money, it means your father isn't just laundering. He's clearing violations using insiders. And JP. I hesitated. My voice came out flat. Julian. Cut. Phone out. I snapped photos of every page. Flipped faster. Noted dates. Cross-referenced. July 19th, wire to KH. Same day as the container seizure in Port LA. August 2nd, NL receives bonus. Also the week AMC dropped their internal audit against Granger. You don't bribe compliance officers unless you're hiding criminal liability, I said. Can we prove it? I turned to Quincy. We're holding the proof. Cut. Outside, the estate grounds were quiet. Too quiet. I grabbed the ledger, locked the drawer again, and we slipped out. Where are we going? Quincy asked. To the one person who can connect the dots without being traced. Cut. Naomi opened the door before I knocked. Her robe was on, but her expression was razor-sharp. Thought you'd come sooner, she said. Get in. Quincy hovered on the threshold. Is she always like this? Naomi looked at him and said, always 3 steps ahead and twice as tired of pretending. We sat in her kitchen, dimly lit, silent save for the hum of her laptop. I laid the journal on the table. Naomi's eyes flicked across the pages. Her brows lifted. This is it. This is the damn spine. I need you to cross-match those aliases with corporate filings, SEC audits, offshore accounts. Anything that links back to Granger, I said. And fast. Naomi opened a drawer and pulled out a burner phone. Verity, she said softly. We're past due diligence. We're into federal exposure. If what you're sitting on gets submitted, there will be arrests. She tapped the phone. And you'll have enemies who don't just write nasty emails. I stared at her. Then I'll need insurance. Naomi smiled grimly. Then you'll need to look at this. She turned her laptop. A freeze frame from the estate's security feed. Timestamp, 11:12 p.m. Julian, slipping out the back door, holding a USB drive. He wasn't running. He was relocating to a different battlefield. Naomi zoomed in. Want to know where he went after leaving the house? She clicked. AMC headquarters. Downtown. Their restricted archives room. Security logs show a guest access badge used under your name. I clenched my teeth. He's setting me up. Naomi nodded. They're prepping a report. Unauthorized access to financial data by Liberty Freight exec. He wants to spin the fraud on you. Cut. My heart pounded. It's the end game, I muttered. He's moving faster now. Pushing every card. Naomi whispered, that's what men like Julian do. They don't shoot first. They dig graves and leave you standing beside them. Cut. I stood. Then it's time I stopped standing still. We left Naomi's and headed straight to the only man left in the city who knew where the real wires went. Nolan Keller. Are you sure he'll talk? Quincy asked. No, I said, but I'm sure he'll listen. Cut. AMC building. Lobby at midnight. Empty. Silent. Guard distracted. Elevator ride long enough to feel like a coffin lowering. We reached the 27th floor. Keller's office. Locked. I knocked once. Then again. Finally, the door creaked open. Keller stood there, half-dressed, pale. His tie loose. Shirt rumpled. Sweat on his brow. You shouldn't be here, he said. And yet, I replied, we both are. He stepped aside. You know why I'm here. I don't want trouble. You already have it. I dropped the ledger on his desk. He looked down, then up. This wasn't supposed to come out, he whispered. Then you should have burned it. Keller sank into his chair. The Grangers, they paid me to bury things. Just once, then twice, then every quarter. He looked like a man confessing to God. They used Julian to do the handoffs. Always Julian. Said he had family loyalty. I leaned forward. What did Julian promise you? That if it ever came to light, Keller said, you'd take the fall. Cut. Suddenly, footsteps. Heavy. Fast. Outside the door. Then, the fire alarm blared. Sprinklers triggered. Red light spun. Smoke. Confusion. Distraction. Julian's calling card. I grabbed the ledger and the USB Keller handed me, shoved them into my bag, and yanked Quincy toward the fire exit. We bolted into the stairwell. Smoke curled beneath the door. Not real fire. Just a message. Julian was done watching. He was now burning things to the ground. The night air in the ballroom lobby cut cold when I walked in. Flashbulbs stuttered. Reporters murmured. Cameras glowed like moths around a fire. I stood under overhead lights, dressed in black, heels clicking against marble. I held a folder, and in its folds, everything. The ledger, the USB, the altered wire, the fake signatures, the timestamps down to milliseconds. The proof. I stepped to the podium. The room hushed, a drone of expectation. Tonight, I began, voice sharp, we expose who profited from cover UPS, who used loyalty as a cloak, and who betrayed not just business, but trust. Cut. A video flickered behind me. First frame. Julian Heath, pressing approve on a phantom transfer. Static green timestamps, overlapping with Granger Bank routing codes. Second frame. A port terminal explosion. Containers rotting. Orders ruined. Third frame. A shot of Quincy's device connected to AMC inside a locked server room. Faces froze. Sterling white as linen. Dash clenched fists. Quincy. Eyes wide like he swallowed his own heart. I watched them. Calm. But my chest hammered. This was no longer about revenge. It was about justice. A voice crashed from the back. You're defaming us. Julian's voice, raw, panicked. He lunged forward. I held up a hand. You made me a promise, I said. You offered me a seat at the table. Instead, you handed me a noose. The crowd exhaled as one. Click of shutters. The hush of cameras. The drop of a verdict. Cut. Outside. Rain started again, fine drops against glass. Cold. Honest. Quincy stepped up beside me. His suit soaked at the shoulders. Guilt carved lines on his face. Are you okay? He asked. I didn't answer. Because I'm not sure I'm forgiving you, I said softly. But I'm done needing you. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Behind him, sirens wailed. Flashing red and blue. Approaching fast. Julian tried to flee. Guards intercepted. Shouts. Restraints. A sickening twist of metal around wrists. Justice moving slow but certain. A camera flashed in my face. Quote flicked into my mind. It's better to be hated for who you are than adored for who you are not. I let it linger. Cut. Weeks later, Liberty Freight HQ. The lights were not sterile. They were alive. Staff worked late, fingers typing, phones ringing. Contracts logged, shipments dispatched. I walked down the hall. I paused at a window. Outside, the city glowed. Cold but alive. Naomi and Avery appeared behind me, silent support. I didn't spin around. I didn't need to. Avery handed me a file. Clean. Finalized. Ownership transferred back to me. Majority shares. Signatures notarized. Legal clearance. I let the paper drop. Printed letters. Bold. Legal. The empire belonged to me again. Cut. Footsteps in the hall. Soft. Hesitant. Quincy's voice, Verity. I turned slowly. His eyes were clear now. Raw. I don't expect you to stay, he said. But I want you to know I tried to fix this. I measured the distance. The betrayal had hollowed something inside me. He offered a hand. A gesture. Simple. I looked at it, then turned away. Some things, I said, ought to stay broken. And I walked on. Cut. In my office, I closed the blinds. The city lights refracted on the glass like shards of a broken mirror. Outside, cars rushed. Lives moved. Inside, I sat behind my desk, ledger in hand. I exhaled. Power isn't taken. It's surrendered inch by those who mistake silence for survival. I added, not anymore. A door knocked softly. Naomi stepped in. She handed me a glass of water. No words, just solidarity. I raised the glass. To truth. To power earned. To silence ended. The room was still. Then I smiled. A slow rise. Quiet. Sharp. Clean. Outside, a helicopter, distant but close enough. Spotlight cutting through fog and ambition. I turned off the lamp. Darkness didn't scare me anymore. Because I was never just the client. I was the queen. And the board just moved.